Fantastic. Let's have a call to order here of the Water and Sewer Commission for October 5th, 2021. Let's open it up to Commissioners' Public Forum. Anybody here from the public? Hearing none. Paul, why don't we get right into the warrants and abatements?
Okay, first thing we'll do is the warrants, starting with commissioner salaries. I'd like to make a motion to approve these. Commissioner salary, $500. Veolia, $4,536.36. Again for Veolia, shed for the feeder line encumbered $2,969. You look at EJ Prescott, $1,416.03, and another one for EJ Prescott for $1,752.68. Then we have Marathon Authorities for inspection sticker. Oh, excuse me, Marathon Automotive, $95. WB Mason for office supplies, $14.43. Franklin Electric for grinder pump parts, $6,368.75. And again, Franklin Electric for more grinder pump parts, $6,559.80. Then we have FM generator for maintenance on a portable generator, $187.50. And lastly, M&M cleaning for $5,585. A grand total of $30,980.55.
I'll second that motion.
Paul, I believe you missed a Veolia for sampling for $1,032.
Sampling says lower pack for the new AO.
Yep. For $1,032. So
Did I not say that?
no, I think you skipped it.
Oh, well, my apologies.
Second as verbally amended.
All right.
Okay,
Great.
roll call vote, Peter.
All right, Mr. Ridlack,
Aye.
Mr. Coleman,
Aye.
Mr. Gagner,
Aye.
Mr. Jennings,
Aye.
and Mr. Cantwell.
Aye.
All right, excellent. Thank you.
Moving on, Paul, right to the, when you go to the,
I've got one more. I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes as written for September 20th, 2021.
I'll second that motion.
roll call vote, Peter.
All right, Mr. Ridlack,
Aye.
Mr. Coleman,
Aye.
Mr. Gagner,
Aye.
Mr. Jennings,
Aye.
and Mr. Cantwell.
I abstain. I was at that last meeting. Let's see, scheduled appointments. Veolia monthly operating report. Vinny, are you on the line?
I am.
Let's have it.
All right, we'll be covering the monthly operating report for August 21. We were fully staffed. We had myself, Dylan Moriarty, and Patrick Adams. For health and safety, we cleaned everything with antibacterial wipes, made sure the monthly checklists were completed. August safety training was on PPE and employee essentials, and also hot work. Safety operations were both on JJ Keller. Compliance during the month of August, there were no exceedances, and August is also a toxicity month, and we passed. Operations and maintenance activities. August 19th, we started preparing the plant for Hurricane Henry to hit. We received 1,300 gallons of pack in the month of August, and that's the last order of pack we were planning on placing. When we run that out, we're going to transition the plant back over to ferric chloride. We picked up a skid of lime from Sturbridge drinking water in August. I attached some pictures here. We replaced an isolation valve on RBC number 2. And as you can see, they're not configured exactly the same. We missed the photo opportunity before removing the valve. So this is just another RBC next to it. So the piping configuration is a tiny bit different, but it's the same idea. The old one was a plug valve that was seized up. We took it out and we installed this nice new gate valve. They're a lot easier to work with. EQ pump 2, the VFD kept reporting a fault, and the fault was a ground fault. So we called in LaFleur Electric, and they did some troubleshooting, and they found a shorted wire down in the junction box near the tanks. They just cut the wire back to where it was clean and reconnected it. Down the road we went. On 8/22, Hurricane Henry arrived. The plant didn't really get hit as bad as we were expecting. We did get over an inch of rain, but the plant was in good position to handle it. We spend a lot of time preparing for these big storms. It normally takes us a good 2 to 3 days to get everything where we want it. And it also takes that same amount of time to return it back to normal operating. I mean, we run tanks low so we have room for the storm surge. We lock in our chemical pumps, we lock in our blowers. It really is a lot of stuff every time a storm comes. So that's why we kind of make sure everybody hears about it. Not to just keep bringing it up every time we get a rain event, but it is a lot. It's not something we just flick a switch and say good luck. The collection system activities, 165 Sunset called, and they said they thought they had a sewer leak in their garage. And we went out and looked at it, and you could see a little staining in the seams of the garage. And we explained to them that they would need to get a hold of a licensed drain layer and have them look into the service line. They contacted Slim Sewer Service, who they ran a trace wire up the service line, and they traced where the service went, and they cut a hole in the garage right about where the water was surfacing. And they had found somebody made a repair splice at some point with Fernco fittings. And these are pressure service lines that Fernco doesn't hold pressure, they're for gravity. So Slim's took that out and made a proper repair, and they're back in service now. The next set of pictures down is 52 Carpenter Hill Road. And I just figured you guys would like to see what we actually check when we go out and inspect the sewer tie-in. So this is a gravity tie-in, and the picture all the way to the right is where they intercepted the pipe that used to go out to the septic tank. You see down a little ways after that, there's a T, then it turns the corner and heads towards the street. And you can see they were just starting to fill in the pea stone when we got there. So it was good timing for us to really check all the joints and everything. Make sure they put a proper amount of cover under and over. Pump station activities. We do our daily checks of the flow meter, 5 East, North Main, and 6 West. North Main Street had a couple of issues in the month of August. We're getting a high sound alarm, and when we started troubleshooting the pump to see what it could be, we ended up pulling the pump out, and it was just packed full of baby wipes. It's a pretty common thing. I've talked to you guys about it before. I mean, they get in the sewer system and they just wreak havoc on the equipment. Then the second time North Main Street called out later in the month, they called with a high wet well level, and one of the pumps had a cracked vacuum chamber. And that's just a little hard plastic cup that has a sensor in it. And basically a vacuum pump sucks the water up into the pump. When the water reaches that sensor, it'll allow the pump to turn on. And when those cups crack, they can't pull the sewage into the pump. So that's why we ended up with that high level alarm. As far as grinder pumps go, we had a call at 8 Highland Ave. It was just a bad pump. And 231 Sunset, it had a bent rail, which I've never seen before. And there was some history at this address that I wasn't here for, so I don't know the whole story. But we contacted Slim's to come pump the tank out and give us their opinion of the situation. And between our team and Slim's, we got it seated up. This was right before Labor Day weekend. And I had spoke with Gabe from Slim's a few times after that. And he said we should try just shimming the rail out and see if that works. So our guys went out there And they installed some spaces behind the rail to try to square it up against the pump. Seems to be working. It looked a lot better when they were done, so we're gonna see if that works out. What was happening is every time the pump would turn on, it would build pressure and blow the gasket out because there was a space. So we were just trying to close up that little space at the top of the seal.
Vinny, isn't this a recurring issue at this address?
Again, Dave, I wasn't here the first time it happened. So this is my first experience with it. But
Pete, do you recall a problem at this address before?
Yeah, so the first time it happened, the check valve up at the street went bad, so that there was always pressure against that seal at the pump. So at that time, the rail actually failed where the pump sat, so it wouldn't make a good seal. So we hired a contractor to go in. They replaced the check valve up at the street, so they had to dig down and do that. And then they replaced the rail inside of the pump chamber itself. And so they had to dig around the outside of the pump chamber to get where the rail discharges and replace the rail on the inside. And as part of that, maybe something kind of went awry over the last couple of years where that rail might not have been sitting perfectly square. So the fact that Vinny was able to, or Vinny's and the guys were able to get out there and square that up and get that the diaphragm, the seal a little bit better, hopefully it works out.
so after
Sorry.
that, we received 200 dig safes for the month. Again, most of those are coming from the water service line tie-ins. So we probably respond to 10 or 15 of them in actuality. And that concludes the MOR for the month of August 2021. If you have any questions, now's a great time.
All right, hearing no questions.
Perfect.
Moving on. To go with the sewer plant operation agreement.
Yeah, so a couple of meetings ago, when this first came up for the proposal from Veolia to the proposal based on our RFP, we the board voted to have Mr. Coleman and Mr. Jennings and myself sit down with John and Vinny to go over the initial proposal and see if there was anything we could do to kind of get the cost down. So John came up with a revised price proposal, and I will turn it over to him just to walk us through it.
Well, thanks, Pete. So after our meeting, we came up with a couple things that were contained within the original price proposal as opportunities to reduce the annual fee. So the revised price proposal results in about a $34,381 price reduction for the first year fee. And where those savings are found are through moving from a fixed CPI to a blended CPI, which is more in line with what the actual costs of the project are, as opposed to just a general CPI, which encompasses everything, even things that aren't applicable to our operation. Results in a savings of about $7,000. Well, not about, it results in a savings, first year savings of $7,950. We've also, because we've already jetted and cambered the entire system, we took out the sewer line jetting scope as required, and that resulted in a $7,140 fee reduction. We're going to continue to utilize the town vehicle, so Veolia was able to return $5,000 annually to the commission which would have been the cost for us to replace the truck with one of our own on an annual basis. And then with all of those caveats, including what we discussed about moving from a chemical and sludge at-risk approach to a limit account type approach, where we establish an annual amount of expense for chemicals and sludge, we're able to remove the flow and load adjustment that would normally be required to account for different conditions on an annual basis of flow and or loads. So those all summarized up to about a 30, well, not, again, I keep using the word about, but to an actual reduction in the first year annual fee of 34,381.
Through the chair, if I might.
Go ahead, Russ.
Thank you, John, for tightening things up with you and your team. As Peter stated, for the rest of the board's information, Mr. Coleman and myself did meet with Peter and John and Vinny and discuss all of this. And we understand that there's not a lot of room for movement on their end with the current climate of just labor force and material costs and things like that. But we do appreciate all of their efforts to trim this down for us so that we can continue to not try to increase rates for our customers and provide the same level or better level of service with their assistance naturally, because they are the guys who run the plant. So I do thank you for that, John.
It was my pleasure.
Mr. Chair, I think it's important to note that based on the chemical and sludge true-up approach, you should no longer see quarterly bills coming in for pack or for sludge removal. So those additional fees are going to go away. So John, I think it is best to come up with a, probably an amount that's, I'm hoping is within 5% plus or minus, so that at the end of the year, when we do a true up, either we'll be getting a little bit of a credit or we might have to pay a little bit more for chemicals and sludge, rather than having a $4,500 a quarter fee for pack or a $4,000 a quarter fee for additional sludge removal. So I think we're paying more up front, but also our quarterly bills and other invoices from Veolia should be less throughout the year.
Yeah, and the other thing I would add, Peter, is that, this approach will be fully transparent to the commission, so they will see each month precisely what the expenditures in those two categories are. And the way I like to look at it is you'll only be paying for what is actually required. You won't be paying anything more than what is truly required to treat the incoming wastewater effectively.
I'd like to make a motion if I could. I guess
ahead.
that's what's required, Peter, at this time is a
Yes.
motion to accept the O&M proposal for the town of Carrollton as printed.
I'll second that.
Peter, roll call vote.
All right, Mr. Ridlack,
Aye.
Mr. Coleman,
Aye.
Mr. Gagner,
Aye.
Mr. Jennings,
Aye.
and Mr. Cantwell.
Aye.
All right, so next steps, then I will work with John. Actually, I'll probably end up sending this over to the town administrator so that he can review it. And maybe, John, I believe you've already been working with your attorneys to put together an O&M contract for review.
Yeah, in fact, it's actually completed, Peter, at least our draft of one. So I should be able to get that forwarded to you by the end of the week, and then where and how you'd like to sit down and review that. I do need to inform you, I will be on vacation next week, so it'll probably have to begin after that.
Okay.
If that's okay.
Do you want to get it to me before you leave so I can have next week to review it with Andrew?
Yes.
And we can, that way there, we can sit down and kind of keep it going. So we're not, we're into October, so.
Yeah, that's my intent, is to get it to you before I leave, and then give you the week to review it, and then you and I can well, whomever can sit down the following week I get back. And it'll, it's very, very similar to the one we currently have. It just introduces some of the things we just talked about in our price proposal.
And the only other step that we're going to have to do is our FY22 funding. So our funding for the maintenance line item for this, not maintenance, but for our annual contract with Veolia, we have $515,699 in that line item, which is well short of what we're going to need. So looking at attachment A from John, it's $642,599. But we also have to add the $30,000 for the monthly maintenance allowance, which is $2,500 per month. So I will go ahead and calculate out the additional money that we need to cover the contract from November 1st through June 30th. And make sure that we put that request on town meeting at the special town meeting to get that additional funding into our line item of the budget so we can fund this contract. I've already let the finance director and town administrator know that we're going to be making this request. I was just waiting for you to vote to approve this proposal so I could get, put the real numbers down and make that request to them on your behalf. So.
Perfect.
If there's no objections to that, hopefully everything kind of goes smoothly. We'll have this executed before October 30th or October 31st, and we'll be good to go for November 1st. And special town meeting is November 15th. And we'll get the additional funding. We should be able to get the additional funding right from user fees. So for now, for FY22, we shouldn't have to worry about talking about increasing rates right away. But I think once we get this approved, get everything settled in, we should maybe have a discussion over after the first of the year about where we are with rates, what we're seeing for anticipated revenue, and if that's going to be enough for the next fiscal year, or if we want to consider having someone come in, evaluate the rates and see if we should maybe do a little bit of an increase, seeing we haven't increased our rates since 2017. But that's a discussion we can have at a later date when I have more information for you.
Sounds good. All right, this American Rescue Plan Act.
Yes, so the town has received over $4 million in the ARPA funds, American Rescue Plan Act funds. And speaking with the town administrator, one of the main objectives of these funds is to be used for water or sewer infrastructure. So I spoke with John, and John had an engineering company, Wright Pierce, come out and do a walkthrough of the plan with himself and Vinny and another representative from Veolia. And to try and look at what we can do to maybe increase our treatment efficiencies with some small scale improvements. And I guess the reason we're trying to keep it small scale or whatnot is so that we don't do a major improvement, get a new NIPD's permit, and then have to just completely step over or redo what we just did. So because our NIPD's permit is expired, we don't know what we're going to get for new discharge limits. John has identified a couple of areas at the treatment plant where we could do some improvements that shouldn't be in the way or should actually help us in the future, no matter what happens with our permit when it gets renewed. So in talking to the town administrator, he has tentatively earmarked $1 million for us for sewer improvements, which was very generous. And John has, again, worked with his team to come up with a proposal to do some engineering analysis, review of our treatment process, and come up with, some real numbers and real proposals and ideas of what we can do to really, replace some outdated equipment and again, be able to treat more efficiently for BOD and ammonia. So again, I'll turn it over to John and he can walk you through the proposal and you can we'll take questions from there.
Sure. Well, thanks, Pete. Again, the idea of what we're trying to do is to not, what we're not trying to do is create a report that we can then just put in a book and put on a shelf, but really target. We know it from our experience, there were really 4 areas of the treatment plant that that were really critical and in need of addressing, specifically for compliance, for safety, and then for making that decision about growth. Oftentimes, we get asked whether or not an industry or a development could come in that would increase the loading to the treatment plant. And given our current situation where we're already over designed for ammonia, those 4 areas were skater improvements, which I know the town is already underway in improving those that system. But the other 3 were the headworks, which we know is a bottleneck for our treatment flows and capacities. And when that system goes down, which it periodically does, can significantly impact downstream equipment because we're no longer removing grit or screenings. The second one is the biological system, which currently is overloaded for ammonia. We're always on the edge for compliance, particularly with ammonia. And then the third one is our chemical storage and feed system. I know for the commissioners that have come through the plant, understand walking through what is really a maintenance shop area has been reutilized to as a chemical feed area. And there are some real challenges associated with that area in the way we handle and the way we store chemicals. And as Peter described, all three of those would be improvements that would need to be done no matter what happens with the permit. We're always going to have ammonia as a permit. We're always going to be needing to introduce chemicals into the process, and the headworks will always be the front of the plant that receives the incoming flow, no matter what the effluent discharge permits may change. So with that being said, we really want to focus on developing alternatives with actual a drawing set to be able to provide the town with some good hard quote data about what would be the recommended approach to address those three areas, and then what the budget would likely be in order to accommodate them. And it'll be a series of alternatives, which is why it's going to take us a fair amount of time to develop. We don't want to just go in with a closed off mindset about we're just going to recommend one thing. We really want to comprehensively look at a minimum of 3 opportunities per area, and then present that back to the board, the commission, in order to make a reasonable decision about what makes sense, and then what the expected cost associated with that improvement might be. And again, it won't be just a simple report. It will involve drawing sets. It'll involve, or include, I should say, information that we can then take on the street, and it will include budgetary estimates for each one of the recommended solutions. And then working with the commission and the town on the opera funding, be able to actually go out, procure, and install the recommended solution in those 3 areas.
Through the chair, if I might,
Go ahead, Russ.
make a motion that we accept the proposal as printed by Viola.
Can I get a second?
I'll second that.
All right, discussion. Okay, roll call vote, Peter.
Mr. Redline,
Aye.
Mr. Coleman,
Aye.
Mr. Gagnon,
Aye.
Mr. Jennings,
Aye.
and Mr. Cantwell.
Aye.
Who seconded that?
Cam,
Okay, thank you.
all right, thank you, John.
Okay, well, thank you all. I really appreciate both the confidence, but also the collaboration that we have as a group here. It's really nice and enjoyable to work with everyone on the board here.
And
Thanks,
John, real quick, I just want to kind of reiterate the additional, I guess, services that we get from Veolia, where Vinnie references MOR that they replaced that valve. I think in the past, other companies might have required that you call someone else in to do that type of work at an additional cost. So I think even though, again, the fee might be increasing, I think the value that we're getting for this agreement goes beyond what we're seeing just in that price proposal. So again, I think John and Vinny, they not that they go above and beyond, but they provide a great service, I think, for us under that operations agreement. I just want to thank them for that.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Appreciate that.
Perfect. Moving on to new business, Peter.
Yes.
41 Sturbridge Road.
Yeah, so 241 Sturbridge Road is the approximately 1.2 million square foot distribution warehouse going on at the end of Route 20 near the Sturbridge line. It has planning board site plan approval, and I believe they have their MEPA approval as well. You'll see in the letter or a memorandum from them that we received last Friday, a request for a will serve letter for water and sewer service to the development. Again, in that they referenced a 1.197 million square foot warehouse. They also touch on the water storage tank for fire suppression. There were some questions there that they had to work through. And this is the same for both distribution facilities, the one at 53 Sturbridge Road, which will be the Amazon building, and this one as well. The problem with their fire suppression system is under the NFPA guidelines, if there is a fire incident, they need to be able to refill that 200,000 gallon storage tank within 8 hours. And the way our current water system, our current water distribution system is there's no way we could provide them enough flow to refill that tank within that time frame without affecting the rest of our system. So what they're doing there is they're going to erect two 300,000 gallon water tanks for fire suppression. So if there is a fire incident and one tank goes empty, they'll have the other one there as their backup already filled up and ready to go. So
Through the chair, if I might, to Peter.
All right.
Peter, by giving them a will serve vote tonight, that by no means circumnavigates the process of going through a potential peer review with like McClure Engineering, whomever we're going to send this out to, right?
correct. I think that would be part of the will serve letter. I think we'll identify that, yes, at first look, we have the capacity and we're willing to provide you your 17,000 gallons request based on Title V numbers, pending peer review. And also, I'll attach a copy of the privilege fee policies for both water and sewer so that they know that fee is coming as well. I've already provided the privilege fee information to their engineers, so they know that's there. But I think my understanding is their tenant has asked for a will serve letter.
Okay, so I'll make a motion that we will give them a will serve vote this evening, provided that they follow through with peer review and naturally follow all the guidelines of the Water and Sewer Commission.
Thank you. A second.
I'll second it.
Any more discussion? Roll call vote, Peter.
Mr. Ridlack,
Aye.
Mr. Coleman,
Aye.
Mr. Gagnon,
Aye.
Mr. Jennings,
Aye.
and Mr. Cantwell.
Aye. Perfect. Moving on.
Thank you.
Water sewer retaining earnings.
Yes, so at the end of every fiscal year, we get our retained earnings certified for both the Water Enterprise Fund and the Sewer Enterprise Fund. So for FY21, our water retained earnings were $288,767, and our sewer retained earnings were $875,731. Again, these retained earnings are a combination of new revenue above and beyond what was expected, and also the balance of the FY21 budget that was unspent from the approved line items.
So these will be our two motions at the special town meeting, Peter?
These will get lumped into a broader motion for just transfers. So you'll see it, other departments will be requesting transfers. Ours will be on there as well. So I'm asking that you approve two requests for the special town meeting, above and beyond the request for additional funding for the Veolia line item. I'd like you to ask that we transfer $50,000 to the capital expense line item in our FY22 budget from sewer retained earnings. And this will replace the funds that was approved at our last meeting to purchase the new truck. And then also transfer $475,000 from sewer retained earnings to the sewer stabilization account. This will stay there until we need it to fund new projects. And after this transfer, the balance in the sewer stabilization account will be approximately $2.475 million.
I'll make a motion for the two requests for the special town meeting as printed.
A second.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Go ahead, Peter.
All right, Mr. Ridlack,
Aye.
Mr. Coleman,
Aye.
Mr. Gagnon,
Aye.
Mr. Jennings,
Aye.
and Mr. Cantwell.
Aye.
And I believe after those transfers are made, you will still have approximately $300,000 in sewer retained earnings. And the reason for leaving that much in there is in case there is some type of billing hiccup or we don't receive the revenues from the billing, the retained earnings will still be there to cover that shortfall if it happens for some strange reason. And that would be the same reason for leaving the water retained earnings as is, instead of transferring some of that into the water stabilization account as well. So thank you for your approval.
Perfect. Old business,
Yes.
Bostonville Access Road.
Yes, so as discussed at our last meeting, we received the proposals for the Bostonville Access Road RFP. They range from 1.3 to $3.6 million for the project. I've attached a breakdown of the 3 low bidders for you to review. I've also attached a narrative that provides some history of our search for our own in-town water source. So the next step will be for you to decide if you want to move forward with trying to fund the construction of the access road or pause and reevaluate your options.
I'd like to make a motion that we, at this time, pause with any future development on the Bostonville access site and reevaluate everything, put together basically the summation that Peter has worked on, so that at any point in the future, this could be picked up at another point in time, carried forward with all the relevant information to make future decisions, as well as the plans that have happened to this point.
Can I get a second? No second. Discussion?
So I'd like to lead off the discussion if anyone doesn't mind.
Yeah, go ahead, Russ.
All right. So first of all, Peter, thank you for all your work you've put in down at Bostonville. I think this is a key component that the town needed to have in their back pocket moving forward. Whether or not to use in the future, that's a very big question. At this point in time, I don't think it warrants that we become our own private water or our own water supply and fund it from Bostonville. It's too expensive. It's cost prohibitive. It is necessary, however, to have this information, have this project where it is, because we did it with a lot of grant funding and it didn't really cost the town any direct funds. No, it is taxpayers' money. It didn't come directly from Charlton's pocket. With this information, however, we have found that it's going to be very costly to connect to our water supply, not provide us with all the water that we would need. Fortunately, we do have a great relationship with Southbridge, who does provide us with very good quality water and enough water at this point. Would we like to have more water in the future? I definitely think that's part of the direction we should head in. But at this point in time, I don't see proceeding ahead with the Bostonville project as being cost effective or good direction. And that's pretty much the position I've come to after a number of years on the board, after having joined the board thinking, well, Charlton should stand on its own and have its own water supply. But after years on the commission and going through the motions and doing a lot of homework, I just don't think that's really the best step for Charlton. So that's the history behind my motion.
Peter, if we went with the low bid, say 1.3 million, is how much, if any, of that is going to be grant money?
Over the past, we've received $200,000 a year to fund the grant portion to do the exploration that we've done. I don't know if they would be willing to provide us more to do this. But I think, again, as Mr. Jennings said, we've been doing our so we've been doing our due diligence over the last 4 years. And, been taking it methodically and doing what we should to make sure that we don't just jump into something that we're not ready for. And I think we're at a good point right now, as Mr. Jennings says, to just pause. I'm not sure putting $1.3 million in the ground right there will be beneficial. I think that property, those parcels are there, they're identified, the site plan is there. I'll make sure we keep that site plan active so that we can act on it at a later date. And not knowing what's going to happen in town, I think it puts us in a good position to be able to react to what might come to town in the next 3 to 5 years. Because again, we have two very large projects coming into town. One's approved, one is 80% of the way there. None of us can sit here and predict what's going to follow those projects over the next 3 to 5 years. I do know with the work we've done down at Bostonville, we know there's good water there. But is it worth spending? Again, we're going to spend, if we were to spend the $1.3 million now to do the access road, the only reason to do that would be to commit to spend another 12 or 14 million over the next 2 years to connect it to our system. So because to just do the access road and let it sit there, really, I don't think has much benefit. But if you want to commit to actually developing the property at this time, I think you have to be ready to invest, like I said, 12 to 14 million dollars. And again, for 225,000 gallons per day, where right now we have plenty of capacity with our agreement from Southbridge, I'm not sure it's a good way to invest our money at this time. But I think the work that we've done was work that had to get done to get us to this point to make an educated decision to say, okay, we know what we have. We have a estimated cost of what it will be to develop. We know what the benefits are. We know what the drawbacks are. And again, it's there. That information is not going to go away and it shouldn't really change that much. So I think we're still at a good point. And if something big happens, we will be ready to go ahead and grab this and just get it going again.
I'd like to make a motion to put this project on pause as Russ suggested at the time being.
Can I get a second?
I'll second that.
Roll call vote, Peter.
Mr. Ridlack,
Aye.
Mr. Coleman,
Aye.
Mr. Gagner,
Aye.
Mr. Jennings,
Aye.
and Mr. Cantwell.
Aye. All right, water line construction update, Peter.
Yes. So again, as far as the school loop goes, Sue sent out our mailings regarding the 1-year connection period on July 22nd. And ExxonMobil is in the process of sending out I believe their 3rd certified mailing coming up this fall. Service connections. Albanese Brothers are continuing to install service lines to homes and work with their subcontractors to make the actual connections inside of the homes. So far, they have 138 signed agreements to connect. 70 of those agreements have the connections are completed outside of the home and inside of the home. And 128 of those are installed into the home, just waiting for the plumber and electrician to get into the basement and make the physical connection. So of the 138 commitments, Albanese has done the service lines into the basement for 128 of them. So they got quite a bit done this year, and now it's just coordinating. Again, Albanese doing their work is a little bit easier because they're outside. To coordinate the plumber and the electrician to be at a house inside the basement on the same day to get the work done is just a little bit challenging scheduling wise. So the project's moving forward well. I think Albanese, they're almost ready to wrap up, which is good because the construction season's coming to an end. And then the plumber and the electrician, they can work right through the winter in the basements, making the physical connections at the homes as they have time to coordinate them. So Kleinfelder's working on coordinating that. And again, the project's still moving forward.
Perfect. Moving on. Other business. I have a question, Peter. The pickup truck that we're buying, I missed the meeting last time. I'm assuming it's gonna be a mirror image of the one we just bought. You're gonna plow on it too?
Yeah, it's gonna be a utility body. So it's gonna be they had a 2020 Ford F-350 in stock at MHQ. Because if we waited for town meeting and we ordered one, they were saying it's 4 to 6 months out.
Yep.
So MHQ had a Ford F-350 2020. It's a dark green. It's their RH white green color. So it's not gonna,
Plow or no plow?
it'll come with a plow
Okay,
and
perfect,
the service body.
perfect.
And
Okay,
again, we priced it out. I got a quote for the GM from the same company I got my truck from last year, and that was $10,000 more for some reason. They were $59,000. And they were still 4 to 6 months out because they didn't have anything in stock. So
fantastic.
with all the shortages and everything that's going on, I think it's gonna work out well. Hopefully we'll have a new truck here by the 1st of December, and it'll be ready to go for the guys to use this season. And after the last meeting, I know Mr. Jennings talked about getting a price for a trade. I did ask MHQ about if they take trades, and he said yes, but they just wholesale them, so they really don't give much in value for a trade. So I reached out to the highway department to see if they had any interest in the vehicle, and they definitely have interest in the vehicle as a spare because it has a plow on it. So if there's no objection, we can just plan on letting them use the vehicle after the new one comes in. Or have the vehicle. I mean, other than that, otherwise we could surplus it and try and, advertise it and auction it off. But if another department in town has a use for it, I think that could be a good use for it.
All right, well, we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
Okay.
All right, next meeting announcement?
Sure, so that's open. We can either do November 1st or November 8th.
Anybody have any input on that, November 1st or 8th?
Or actually, Mr. Jennings talked about Tuesdays being better for him. Is there, and you want to have that discussion, whether a Monday or a Tuesday is better, or?
Doesn't matter to me, either or.
Either works for me as well.
Paul, do you
How
mind?
about yourself? How about yourself and Suki? Do you guys have conflicts on those nights, or?
I do not. The only conflict, I guess, I think the main reason Mondays were being used is because we usually meet the same week as the Board of Selectmen. And when we were in
Yes.
person, you shared the same room. Since we're not in person and since this is a lot easier, I have no conflict with Tuesdays. Do you, Sue?
And what if we staggered it?
It's whenever we post. There's really no set schedule. It's kind of,
Well,
was-
what I
it
was
was
saying
kind of
is if
routine.
they're the first and third, right?
Yeah, but they seem to be changing as well, depending on when they're busy, but we can definitely do alternating weeks with them. Sure.
Well, that's what I was thinking. If we were to go to the second Tuesday of the month, that might
And
rotate in with them. And then if somebody has to make the selectmen's meeting, or if we have business with the selectmen, then
Right.
it's followed up at their meeting or before their meeting. So,
Yeah, so again, because we're only meeting once a month and that seems to be adequate, we don't seem to be overwhelmed with business when we do meet. I think moving to an alternate Tuesday from the Board of Selectmen won't be an issue. So it'll either be the first Tuesday or the second Tuesday of every month based on when they meet. So I'll just reach out, so we can determine our next meeting date. I'll have to reach out to the Board of Selectmen and see what their schedule is for the beginning of November.
all right.
So
Do you
it'll either
you have
be-
any conflicts, Sue?
No,
Okay, perfect.
And then I am based on the vote you took for the ARPA funds, I am gonna try and get on the next Board of Selectmen agenda just to discuss that with them and give them an explanation of what we're gonna be requesting. So if any of you are interested in attending, let me know. And either way, I'll let you know when I get put on the agenda. So if you want to be there, that'd be great. Same with you, John. If you want to be there to kind of give an overview of what we're going to be requesting.
Sure, Pete.
Great.
You mentioned earlier those 2 invoices you wanted to talk about? No?
Me?
Yeah, the grant invoices, possible grant invoices. Did you want to mention that tonight?
No, we'll go over that at our next meeting.
Okay.
All right, perfect.
All right.
So what date did we choose? We didn't choose a date yet.
It'll either be November 2nd or November 9th, depending on when the Board of Selectmen is meeting.
Okay. And you'll let us know.
Yep.
All right, perfect.
With the meeting being on Tuesday, invoices need to be submitted by a certain time on Wednesday. Is it possible for you to swing by first thing in the morning? 3 of you?
I can
Okay,
tomorrow.
Yes, please.
Yes.
In the
What
morning,
time are you in the office?
7.
Okay, I can definitely do that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right. Did somebody make a motion to adjourn?
we'll make a motion to adjourn.
Can I get a second?
And I'll second that.
All right. Peter, roll call vote, please.
All right, Mr. Redlack,
Aye.
Mr. Coleman,
Aye.
Mr. Gagner,
Aye.
and Mr. Cantwell.
Aye.
All right.
Have a great night, everybody.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate
Thank
all
you.
your support.
Have a
Good
good
night,
one.
everyone.